it's a good day to have met together early morning. I just flew in from California and I didn't realize until right now just how much I missed the mountains, how much I don't miss the traffic, but how much I also love seeing my family and friends out there. Because I was out there for real estate, and at the same time, while I was meeting my clients, I was also made time for a birthday dinner and also to make sure that I saw my parents because, family time is important just as much as being out and about for real estate. So it was a very nice meeting, and I'm happy to have been here today with you guys too.
Yeah, no, we're glad you're able to make it. I know you literally got off a plane like an hour ago, so
Yeah.
appreciate just you balancing everything. Right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
thank you. I mean, Delta got the memo. We had to record, and here we are. my bag's ready and everything, right at the baggage claim.
Oh my
yeah, we
God.
need some travel with Bartholomew with the miles.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest hack about that is like, yeah, if you use points, how much easier it is. And then once you have status, like the perks, I didn't expect to have to check in two bags, for example. I've never used that as part of my membership. So, like, you get two bags free, and each bag, I don't know how much it is, but you get two bags free. I didn't expect to have to check in, and one of them contained my motorcycle gear, a helmet, a
Okay.
jacket, leather boots, and I'm like, how do I take this in my carry-on? It doesn't fit. I tried it. It didn't
Oh,
work. Tetris failed. And yeah, I had to buy a extra set of luggage, and luckily, all right, membership came through. So thank you, Sky Priority.
give
Yeah.
them a shout
Have
out.
you Yeah, seriously, if you want to sponsor this video, please. We're happy to collaborate. I don't know, have you guys had any sort of issues like that traveling where you just have more, or maybe just boarding was a nightmare?
I have a
I've
few
had
stories.
many, I've had flights cancel on me while I'm in the aircraft several times. It's usually when I'm flying by myself, but no one, and yeah, I've been victim of many flight cancellations. Uh,
It's
Oh
the
boy.
worst.
Yeah, it is. It is. But that's funny that you talk about kind of airline miles and status and stuff because I actually this week I officially reached Alaskan Airlines MVP Gold, which was probably the first time that's ever happened to me.
Oh,
So
That life
it
changer.
is a life. So I'll have to see, with the baggage and all the perks and stuff. So it'll be a fun thing. Unfortunately, I'm not expecting to travel much this year. But, you know, we'll see. And maybe those couple of trips that I do have planned, maybe I'll just go all out. Hopefully get upgraded.
I hope there's a trip waiting for you somewhere,
Yeah.
or we come out to you.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's hopefully we can make that happen. Hopefully we can make it happen.
This could be the year.
Absolutely.
There's
This
lots
could
of
be.
mountains over here and rain, Bartholomew. So that's a perfect place for you.
Best of all worlds in Washington.
We'll be ready. No, I've been unfortunate to kind of get stuck in different places every single time I've gone flying, or not every time, but like I've gotten stuck in Mexico City. I've gotten stuck in Costa Rica, and it's just hasn't been fun. So, and like I was a little bit younger. I was probably like in my, yeah, I was like 19, 20, no, probably, or like 2021. And when I got stuck in Mexico City, it was like my first time ever like getting stuck in a layover. And it was the worst because I was just flying like by myself. And I was like, okay, like, well, okay, things like this happen. What do people do though? Because I've never been in that situation before. So luckily, like, after like the flight had landed, they realized that, we had missed our connecting flight. They're pretty good about like kind of giving us guidance as to like where we need to go. And I kind of went to like the hotel areas where like you get a room booked and all that stuff. So it was pretty easy. I think the thing that was a little bit harder was like the Costa Rica because like I was stuck over there for like a week. This was like during like peak, vid times. So yeah, they weren't allowing me to fly over there for obvious reasons. So yeah, I got stuck in Costa Rica for a whole week. So I stayed there for at the I think at the San Jose, which It's like the biggest city or like the main city that they have down there. So that was pretty exciting. I got to see like a new place and everything, but it was scary at first. Like my gut just dropped. But other than that, like I haven't had any other complications with flights other than like, just making it just in time or like last minute because like you're just rushing and like sometimes like I like plan my flight days like to a T where it's like, okay, if I leave by this time, I'll get there at exactly boarding time. Like I don't get there like 2 hours like before how like my parents always tell me, you know? I don't know how if it's like common for you guys like households are now like we need to be there 2 hours before the boarding time. Yeah, no, I get there like
That's pretty brave.
so
Pretty
yeah.
brave. I'm definitely one of the people that will, yeah, be at least at the airport at least like an hour and a half before my actual flight. I just like I don't know if it's traffic over here or what. Like it's kind of a gamble, right? And so
Yeah.
like I never want to risk. I've been close to several flights and I just can't take it.
Oh my God.
And
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
I've been very close. I've been running before, and those times are not fun. But I will say, like being really early to the airport, like hour and a half. Things I've done recently is gotten like a travel credit card where they have like lounge access, and so that's kind of how I've been using like my time at the airport. With drinks, snacks, food, whatever, and Wi-Fi. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty game changing, I will say. So.
I gotta admit, I didn't know that like those lounges existed until like a year ago, year and a half ago.
Mhm.
I had no idea. It was like one of my coworkers brought it up. They're like, "Do you go to the lounges?" I was like, "What do you mean? Don't you just like sit there with everybody else like in the waiting room, like or until like in your gate pretty much until your flight arrives?" He's like, "No, you go to the lounge." I'm like, What are you talking about, dude?" And he just starts talking to me about all these different perks that he's getting, or that he gets. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. So he ended up taking me when I went on a flight for work.
Mhm.
We had gone to San Jose and then like he was there. And then it's like, oh, like, let me go show you the lounge. So he went and showed me. I'm like, oh, this looks like it could be a game changer. So I don't know. I'm
Mhm.
still I'm still working on getting access to it via American Express, but until not yet. It's not much of a priority for me at the moment. How about you, Bartholomew? Do you use any of the lounges when you're traveling or no?
Not as much as I should, mostly because I cut it close most times.
Oh,
I like living dangerously when it comes to flying.
dude, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and it's not like out of design. Like sometimes LAX is an experience because you will probably eat up to 2 hours. Like sometimes getting from the rental car place to the actual gate that you're supposed to, like it could be an hour and a half. And you're already there, kind of, sorta. The shuttle is just supposed to drop you off, but the traffic is just so bad. Um, which is kind of interesting too, because one of the things that we've been talking about is burnout and stress and how we handle all that. And travel can be a stressful situation. I think we just shared a couple examples between flights being changed or delayed or canceled, and then having to rebook or being stranded somewhere, and on a time crunch between getting there and actually going to where you're supposed to be. Um, yeah, like I left last night. I took a nap, a 3 hour nap, going in and out with crying babies in our flight. And yeah, I mean, that I haven't experienced burnout in a while, which is phenomenal. But at the same time, I think I could be better about sleep. I could be better about rest. And it's very much a go because I had the option. Thank you guys for being like considerate, like offering, hey, we can push this out 15 minutes. But I think to meet the other the other timeline for Juan to be considerate and thinking about the list of chores that I gotta do, it's kind of like I think I'll catch up tonight hopefully, but serious burnout, not since undergrad. I think what's been helpful, I think naps. Yeah, power naps. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about burnout, but have has there been a case of burnout recent?
I feel
Okay.
like, at least for me, or Juan, if you want to take this,
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for me, my burnout is almost cyclical, right? I feel like it comes in seasons, it might be kind of weird, but it usually occurs around the end of the year. And, I think it is me, one, like, I think holiday travel is always really stressful, and I think like that is almost always inevitable for myself. And like balancing it with kind of like the ramp down from work, everybody wants to kind of get everything out the door. And so, I feel like it always comes around kind of like that November, December timeframe where I get really exhausted, right? And like it's really unfortunate because I feel like have been experiencing it probably for the last like, I don't know, like maybe 5 years, right? And like I would say like every year I kind of handle it a little bit differently, right? And so I agree. The naps when you need them, take them, right? That's really important. But I would even say too, like I think setting boundaries is also something that I've been doing more of recently too. And so whether or not that means like, knowing what my holiday schedule is, right? Like I'm not gonna be working more after like 5 p.m. every day, right? Like I think like the work that I get accomplished at that time, right, is the work I'm gonna be accomplishing at that time, right? And like giving myself that space where then I can go and kind of go and plan like, my the 2 weeks I spent in Chicago for Christmas, right? Or the week in Vegas that I spent in Christmas, right? And like, it gives me kind of a little bit more time to myself to kind of one just get the things that I know that I need to do. Like travel is gonna be inevitable. Like I want and I have to see my family during those times. And then, to having that expectation for work, right? And like hey, like I understand like there's ramp down and stuff like that, but at the same time, like making sure everybody's aware of like what kind of work I can get done in the time frame, right? And when I'm going to be out. And so I think that's kind of been helping me. At least kind of like those moments where I know it's going to be a little bit more stressful. So
Thanks.
I don't know, how about you?
About
I feel like it's like different for all of us. Like, like because mine's like very sporadic. It doesn't take very long and it just comes out of nowhere. It's like there's no like it's not like an ongoing thing where it's like, okay, I feel like I get a good enough amount of sleep. I'm not saying I'm not deprived, but I'm not also getting my full 8 hours, but like I get just enough to get by the day. And I'll burn out like really on random days. Like sometimes I'll be burnt out like on a Wednesday. And then like, I just take the rest of the day, like, I go in, I do my shift over at my job, get all that work done. And then if I'm not coming home to doing real estate, like what I do is just like I try decompressing, relaxing, whether that's just hopping on, social media or recently I got into Fortnite back in December. So that's literally been my like my time to decompress. And dude, it's so funny. I haven't
nice.
played video games in probably years. I'm talking like probably like back in high school. And probably even before then, because I think by high school I was like done. I think like freshman year of high school, like my last time I really, really played video games. And then like now, this past December, my girlfriend's little brother is like, "Do you play Fortnite?" I'm like, "No." Like, how do you play it? And then he introduced me to it, and like the rest is history now. Like you'll catch me playing Fortnite at least like once a day. Like like even if it's just for half an hour, I'm just hopping on for half an hour and then I go back to what I need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't have like really prolonged periods of burnout. Thankfully. I have, obviously even but just on the days that I do, I feel it, I notice it, like I'm just fatigued, I'm tired, I don't really feel like kind of like going above and beyond that particular day. And something that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is like I don't know. I don't think burnout is necessarily contagious, but I don't know. I'm starting to question it because like sometimes like even if I see it in my
Mm.
office, like other like coworkers of mine, if they're like burning out and like they're not like feeling 100%, I'm like, oh, I feel like it like gradually like that those like vibes just kind of pass on to me sometimes. I'm like, oh man, like you're tired too? Like, yeah, me too. Uh
No.
so I
Yeah,
think
that's a good point. Your environment might have an impact on it where yeah, I would agree that it's contagious.
right. I think it's just the way you talk about it, and I think that kind of goes into like just pretty much like the advice people give, like I think this is like what probably life coaches would probably tell you. It's like, you're gonna feel what you think, and what you think is basically gonna come into fruition, or you're gonna manifest it. So it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, like how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel burnt out? Do you feel like you're good or not? And I think it's like really like all up to you. Um,
That's right.
and I think it's like interpersonal thing. How do you guys kind of go about like, surpassing burnout? Like, kind of going into that topic of like, we all experience it, but like how do you pick back up where you started and get that motivation to kind of follow through with what it is that you guys have been planning, like your goals and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a good one, right? I think like for me, giving like a lot of my burnout usually happens like at the end of the year. I think the new year, right, going into like after the holidays gives me like a really good time to kind of refresh, reset, right? And kind of reevaluate what I want to get done for the year, right? And so I think I'm always trying to find ways to kind of shake up my environments, right? Or like I always try to set like, I don't know, very different kind of goals for myself every year.
Yeah.
And so, I think whether or not it is like career goals, whether or not it is like, real estate goals, whether or not it is just something like I want to accomplish like personally, right? And so, I think one of the things that I want to go into this year really focusing on is my mental health, right? I feel like I have never done a really good job taking care of myself. I've never,
Yeah.
I would, I've never, right?
Mhm.
And so, that's one thing that I want to be really mindful going into this year is, right, like how do I go and like check in with myself more often and like how do I kind of prevent myself from, losing that motivation or feeling more burnt out, right? And like so yeah, so that's kind of how I like to stay motivated. It's kind of like really kind of challenging myself to like things that I haven't done in the past that I want to change and just like I don't know, I feel like having a new challenge is really exciting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just love it. So that's kind of how I approach it, right? And I'm curious what you guys are doing for like how to remotivate yourself after these periods.
That is so interesting. I remember hearing something along the lines where burnout is what happens when you try to avoid being human for too long. It's almost because everything we're doing is very like just work related, or we're consumed in what we're doing. And then, we kind of just forget to live and take downtime. And I think your point about mental health being very important, where, sometimes you just got to relax, chill, and then come back to it. Um, I think as an engineering student, you're kind of trained to push through it because one, the only way to really get the concepts is to just, hey, work out those problems, even though it's a high level of stress and you're going to fail, but the limelight is, hey, it's graded on a curve. Despite that. But even then, like that is in itself is so stressful. So I remember the biggest and worst was engineering school, where, oh my goodness, I remember I couldn't sleep after avoiding sleep, pulling all nighters, and I was mortified because I questioned, will I be able to sleep? Because that can be a bigger problem. And then juggling between leadership roles and schoolwork and student work as a student assistant. And now, as an adult, I do everything in my power to just avoid being in that predicament. End of year, I'm very high stress because the expectation is we're closing out projects. There might be a shutdown for the company, just where nobody touches the work that was planned for to continue once the new year, and everybody is like refreshed. Yeah. And so kind of planning around that and making sure that it's almost like a budget of when can I make sure that as an introvert I can recharge alone time, do something that's independent and can suck me in away from daily activities and responsibilities, because then, yeah. So I think part of that is for me dancing, even if it means like taking a class. That is enjoyable. When it doesn't get enjoyable is like being out and about for 2 long hours. So I can social dance for like an hour, hour and a half, not 4 or 5 hours. That's drains me. But yeah, that's a little bit of about what I do. I don't know. What are you guys' other hacks?
No. I like how we're like thought. like touching the subject about like mental health. Like I think like that's like such a huge thing, especially like in today's like I was honest, in today's society, not just generation, like just all across anybody and everybody out there who everybody experiences burnout. Everybody has to be aware of their own mental health. And I've heard a lot more like conversations about it over the past couple of years, to be honest, because like I feel like exactly what Bartholomew was saying. Like sometimes I've never heard that quote, by the way. Awesome quote. Was sometimes that burnout is when we forget to be human. Or say that one more time, right? So I was like, oh, that's a really good way of putting it. Like, like it's okay because like when people have talked to me or I've talked to people, given advice or something of the sort, it's like, hey, it always comes out like, hey, don't forget, like it's normal to feel stressed. It's normal to like feel overwhelmed. If you need to let a tear out, let a tear out or 10, whatever you need. And that goes very hand in hand with what you said. Like all that advice is like, hey, remember you're human. Like, don't try being like Superman or Superwoman, trying to get everything done in a short period of time. Expand your horizon and let yourself just be human. And make sure that, you're taking the time for yourself to, recoup, get refreshed, as Katie was saying. And I think like, I don't know, that's pretty much like a lot of the advice that I've surrounded myself with over the past couple of years. Because I exactly how like that Katie's goal this year, I had like a very similar goal like I think last year or like 2 years ago, where I was saying to myself, I was very like goal oriented and goal driven, where it's like I need to hit this benchmark next, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like that never really allowed me to like just stop and enjoy the moment, which kind of goes in, I think, hand in hand with one of our other videos where we talked about like some story that I told about what was it? I'm forgetting the name right now, The Alchemist. But long story short, it's, you know, once I kind of like identified it, I acknowledged it that I needed to actually like take breaks. I think my life just turned around for the better and it was good. I started enjoying myself. And I guess I kind of want to bring up this topic because I just saw a video. Oh, I saw like two videos. One of them was like it's like a TikToker just doing videos of himself and kind of the topic about like like one was him talking to a friend who's just like again goal oriented, just focused on the money, and then saying that he'll enjoy it after he makes it. So, years go by while his friend was asking him, like, let's go on trip, let's get these experiences. And then, 10, 20 years pass, his friend who was so goal oriented finally has the income that he wanted to be able to enjoy life. He invites his friends, their life, like they just gradually like got better and they changed, obviously, like different priorities happened. And now they're not able to go out with him, even though he's got the money and they may be able to, but they just have other things in their life that like doesn't allow them to go out and like do stuff anymore in life as often as they used to. But they've gotten a wealth of experiences over like those last 20 years versus the friend that was just like so goal driven and oriented and didn't want to like spend a single dime to go out and do all these things as they were progressing up the ladder of I don't know, let's call it corporate America or just life. So that was a very interesting thing that I saw. Another one was like just recently, you guys know him, or Bartholomew, I think you know Graham Stephan. I hope I didn't butcher.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You guys know?
Mhm.
Was like I guess he was doing a little podcast and they asked him, like, like at what point like did he stop like wanting to upscale or like I didn't see the whole thing. It was like a little clip. So if he's watching this, I really hope like, like I'm not trying to like take words out of context.
You're like kind of
Yeah,
context.
Graham, if you're watching this, dude, we love you. Uh, but he had mentioned that like at some point, like he stopped being so fixated on wanting to make $100 million, and he said like, you know what, like no, like he built a little team of like close friends. They start doing what they're doing now, which I think he's doing like a podcast on his own, and it's just a very close knit of friends. And they ask him like, "Oh, what's next? Like, what are you signing up to next?" And people get so caught up with that, like, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" And he's like, I don't need to upscale from this. I enjoy this. I enjoy what I do. It gives me the time, the freedom that I want to do. So I'm like, what more could you ask for? Like, it just shouldn't always be focused on how much more you're going to upscale, as long as I feel like you reach the level of comfortability where like you're good. I agree with Katie though. Like, you do need new challenges that like, make you want to like pursue something new. It doesn't just specifically have to be like financial wise, but it could be like, I don't know, something different. What are some things that like are some challenges that you've set for yourself, Katie, like in the past?
Yeah, a lot of it has been kind of career driven, right, in the past, right? Exactly what you were saying. And, I think it's really interesting, that you mentioned like getting to a point in your career where, you're burning yourself out. You're challenging yourself to be where you are. And then at the end of the day, you kind of question about like, was it really worth it, right? And, I actually resonated quite a bit with, what you were saying, Juan, just now, because, I think like being in Seattle, like I definitely feel like I moved out here for work, right? And so like this is my environment is like, being in this tech field up in here, up in Seattle, Washington, right? And like, I moved out here almost 4 years ago. And so like that was kind of like my goals was to kind of see like how far I can get in this career, how well I can do and whether or not I can make it, right? And so like I would say like definitely like the last couple of years were always career driven, right? And like that's also where I also started real estate, where I met you guys, right? And so, like, for me to kind of be out here is like Seattle for me equals to work, right? And I think that's why, like, I'm here most of the year, and I think, like, by the end of the year, when I have that time to go back to my home to my family in Chicago, right? That for me, that family time is so important for my mental health. It's so important for me to kind of decompress because the environment is so different. It's so much slower, like being with your family is almost as if time, stopped, right? Like I feel like when I go home, it's just like, you know, things are exactly the same. My room back at home looks exactly the same as I left it a year ago, right? And just like it it is such a really kind of refreshing time for me to be back because, it kind of makes me kind of evaluate like, yes, I've done X, Y, and Z here out here in Seattle and like I either accomplished my goal, I didn't accomplish my goal, depending on how ambitious I was right that year. But at the end of the day, like, I think what really brought me joy is like really kind of having that time with my family, right? And so, it makes me kind of evaluate like whether or not Seattle's going to be like the long-term play, right? And I think that's a pretty natural thing to do, right? When you spend years and years of your life trying to go and build like the level of wealth that you want to achieve to have the career goals that you want to accomplish at the age that we are, right? And so, I think for me that's kind of like I don't know if I'm at the point where I'm wanting to kind of make that decision right now, but it is a decision that I know I'm going to have to make in the near future, right? And so yeah, so I mean that's kind of one way that I kind of at least by the end of the year how I kind of go and like decompress and remotivate myself, right? Is kind of having that switch in my brain, at least temporarily, right? And then going into the new year and kind of reevaluate like, okay, was last year really worth it, right? Was last year um was everything that I hoped for more and if I didn't accomplish everything, right? And being okay with that and like, okay, how do I set kind of better goals for myself or more realistic goals, right? And I think that's why mental health was such a big thing for me for this year, right? Because, you can go years and years and years kind of doing, the career things, right? But at the end of the day, you kind of evaluate like, yeah, I don't know. Do I feel human at this point, right? Like, I go back to but how kind of refining myself in ways and like so yeah, that's kind of where I am right now, right? And so I appreciate you bringing up like, you know, kind of that reflection point at the beginning of the year. And like, I think that's even why we decided today to kind of talk about motivation because, I think it's a pretty natural thing, especially as our first podcast for the beginning of the year, right? And like kind of checking in with each other and like how things have been. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. And hearing from you guys, that's a great motivator. Talking about this because it's not an everyday conversation, especially with peers, even though we all experience it in some way, shape, or form. When you think about it, burnout is kind of like your body telling you, hey, you haven't taken a day off, so I'm going to take a day off for you. Here it is. Bam. You get all sorts of surprises like, all right, great. um, so if in terms of motivation, because I don't think I've really reflected on that, but a big motivator is to avoid it, and I try to keep as conscious of that as possible. Um, Making time for things that don't feel like work, which things like this, recording, hanging out with you guys, um, because for some it might seem like work. It hardly ever feels like work, and I think because it's such a genuine experience. It's sincere, it's open, and it's different from our day to day. And because of that break in that cycle, that's I find so much, not only energy, but I feel rejuvenated when I leave these calls because it's so much different and it's more aligned to where my normal state of thinking really is. And I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I always feel that way.
Yeah, I would say too, I'm really glad that we have the time that we spend the month that we do. Kind of I think I think it's easy to have these conversations, right? I feel like we've been working together for a while and, I agree with you. It never feels like work. Every time we have a call, I actually feel more rejuvenated and actually it really motivates me, right, to continue the things that I'm doing, right? And so, yeah, no, I agree with you. You guys are awesome. And it's always a pleasure just to kind of hang out with you guys on the weekends here. I know we're kind of all over the place. So I think even having us dedicate the time every month to kind of do this has, yeah, it really is. It's a lot of, it's more fun than it looks, right? And it's yeah. So,
Yeah, kind of like what you're
Yeah.
saying, these are conversations, topics, and this is this is like for us, and then for our viewers, just to know these are like deeper conversations that sometimes we all have like within ourselves, especially when we're going through a moment of like self-reflection or like you're going through a period of like finding yourself. I think how Katie put it that earlier. Like you just go through those experiences time after time throughout our lifetimes. Like it doesn't just happen one time. It's it happens when you're hit double digits and you turn from 9 to 10. It happens when you turn 18, 21. We all know what happened in 21. 25 when you're able to rent a car. All of a sudden, I didn't know that was even a thing, to be honest with you. And I'm just throwing out like these not historic milestones, sorry, but just like these like age milestones that I feel like society has placed on themselves. Like, oh, like things are going happening, things are going. 25 is like another word for is like quarter life crisis, I think. And people experience that all the time. It's a thing, it's real. But like at the end of the day, like don't forget to take time for yourself, self-reflect, and kind of going back to like our team, like being able to have you guys to talk to about these things, like something on like deeper level. It's like a nice little check-in with like peers that we've have a very similar background, we have very similar goals and interests that we want to kind of pursue moving forward. And despite of like how different we all are, there's like something that brings us together, and I really enjoy that. I enjoy that doing this with you guys. So thank you both literally for taking the time out of like your Saturday, Bartholomew rushing from the airport to get your two luggages out of the out of the conveyor belt, running back home through the rain. I hope you had an umbrella, by the way. Katie, thank you so much for taking
No.
time. I'm sure you got a lot of things on your plate today on a Saturday, or no, today's Sunday, sorry. On
Yeah.
a Sunday. I forgot tomorrow's President's Day, so it feels like a Saturday. So again,
Uh,
yeah, every time that I get with you guys, it's like it's that's nice. It's like a nice little like getaway from my day to day. So
I'm Bartholomew Perez. I'm a real estate agent in California and Florida, resident in Florida, but I do travel back and forth regularly, monthly. And we are the Fortune Collective. We're here because making an impact brought us together, community brought us together, and a vision of creating wealth, not just for ourselves, but those that also have a similar interest and those that will follow us with amongst our families too. That's a bit about me.
Juan Magana, licensed realtor out here in California, and just realtor. I'm not flying back and forth between states. But definitely it's, I'm based out of Orange County, but I do travel, whether that's to the Inland Empire, Ventura County. Really, I just want to be able to be a resource for people. Be that representative for you, especially, you know, if you're like in the home buying process, like you want somebody there on your side to kind of guide you through the whole thing. Or if you're a seller looking to see like, well, I want to sell my home. What does it take? You know, we're there for you, all three of us, you know, myself in California, Bartholomew in California and Florida. Katie, go take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Wynn. I am Washington realtor out and based out here in Seattle, Washington. Snohomish, King, Kitsap counties out here. And yeah, ditto what these guys said. So
There we
Thank you
go.
guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.